107.5 WGCI, the shot's #1 for hip-hop and R&B. It's the morning show with Leon Rogers, Kendra G, and myself, Kyle. In Chicago, there's a lot going on in the city right now, so it's a perfect opportunity for us to have the Superintendent, Eddie Johnson, hanging out with us today on the show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me in today.
Thanks for being with us.
It's always a pleasure.
No question. Now, this is great because we were going to talk to you today about recruiting and getting some minorities into the police department. And just the timing of it so happens to be with everything going on in the city, so we can kind of get into everything today.
Yeah, you know, we are having another entry exam. It'll be December 8th, but the application period is open right now, and it'll be open until October 1st, so you can go to chicagopolice.org to apply for it. And I tell you, we have done a lot of things to bring minorities onto the police department, because when you think about it, the city demographics is a third Hispanic, Black and Caucasian, and so the police department should reflect those demographics. And I hear people ask me all the time, why can't we have more black officers in our communities? And I'm with you on that, but I can't put them out there if I don't have them. You know, you can't just talk about the change. You have to be willing to be part of that change. And the quickest way to change things is to bring people in that understand what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
But how do we change the narrative that, let's be honest, that a lot of black people in our community look at you guys, they see the uniform, they don't see the person behind the uniform, they just see the uniform and they feel a certain way about it. Yeah. How do we change that narrative so more people can come, or people of color can come and be
Yeah, Leon, you are absolutely right. You know, I've been a cop 30 years now, and, you know, we have to do a better job in CPD of letting people understand that there is a person behind that uniform, and that's why our community engagement, you know, Robin Robinson and her team, Deputy Chief Dwayne Betts and his team is so critical to this, because, you know, we have to immerse individuals that come from out of the city into these black communities. We have to put them in that environment before they get out on the street so they can better understand it. But again, you know, at the end of the day, if we want to change things in our community, people have to be willing to be part of that change.
Right. Yeah. Right. You know, Johnson, you know I love you dearly. So, yes. But I was a little mad at the police department this week, and I want to tell you why. You know, I went to Lollapalooza, and it was like 100,000 people. And while I was just there, not even realizing what was happening in the city of Chicago at the time, I felt so safe. You know, there was helicopters over Lollapalooza, there was cops everywhere, and I just had a thought like, you know, 100,000 people here, and the police are here to protect us, which they should be. Why can't they do the same in certain areas of Chicago? Why do I feel like in certain areas of Chicago does not get the same protection that, I'm going to keep it all the way real, 100,000 predominantly white kids are getting to be downtown Chicago? And then we get the numbers on Monday that, you know, 70 shootings, 12 people passed away. So is it fair for me to feel that way?
No, that's fair. That's very fair. So what I would say to you is this, you know, events like Lollapalooza, Taste of Chicago, things of that nature, that comes around every year. So we prepare for that. But that we have just as many police officers in the neighborhoods, because trust me, I grew up in the neighborhood, you know, so I'm acutely aware of the perception out there. But we put a lot of resources into our surrounding areas, into the neighborhoods, especially the ones that are experiencing high crime. We put a lot of resources there. And a lot of times you don't see them because everybody is not in uniform. Like Lollapalooza, all the cops down there, for the most part, are going to be in uniform because we want to show that presence. The cops out in the neighborhoods, a lot of them are covert cops, so you won't see them. Okay. But they're out there, you know, and we have a responsibility to be able to manage both of those types of things.
Superintendent Eddie Johnson is hanging out with us today in Chicago. We appreciate your time. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come right back and continue this conversation that we're having. We think it's an important one, and we appreciate you being here today. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with the Superintendent Eddie Johnson up next. 107.5 WGCI, the shot's #1 for hip-hop and R&B. It's the morning show with Leon Rogers, Kendra G, and myself, Kyle. Superintendent Eddie Johnson is hanging out with us in the studio. We talked a little bit about recruitment this morning. We talked a little bit about the violence over the weekend. I want to touch on one more thing, Superintendent, because I spoke on it earlier this morning in the headlines, and people feel a way about this quote-unquote bait truck that was found in a neighborhood on the weekend. And, you know, I feel like that line of policing is kind of old school. I feel like in 2018, if we're talking about more community policing, I think that's the kind of thing that has to get left in the past. How do we get away from doing things like that and really concentrate on community policing and embracing the neighborhood rather than setting the neighborhood up?
Yeah, that's a very valid point. You know, so we are conflicted about that type of thing. So we have to do better with that. You know, that particular mission was instituted by Norfolk Railroad, and they had been experiencing cartage theft and theft of their firearms from their trucks. So they asked CPD to support them, but I'm going to take a hard look at that to see what the balance is, the correct balance, because it is troubling when you see that type of thing go on, especially in the minority neighborhoods, even though, I know that they have been experiencing theft of guns and things of that nature over that way. But trust me when I tell you, I'm going to take a hard look at that and see if that's something that we want to continue as CPD. We went over there to assist them, and it's a difficult thing for the neighborhood to accept. We have to prevent crimes, of course, but we still have to strike a balance with it.
One thing I didn't like really quick is that in the video there was a guy that said, "You guys wouldn't do this in your neighborhood," and one of the officers said, "You're right, we wouldn't," or something to that effect. And I was like, that's blatant disrespect.
Yeah, see, those are the types of things. I've been a cop 30 years, so it's hard to irritate me. But when I hear cops say things like that, that's just not who we are. We're here to serve everybody, and we're pushing so hard to make sure that CPD is partners with the neighborhoods and not like a occupying force. Because, listen, the truth of the matter is the police department is only strong as the faith that the community has in it. And that's how you build that trust, And I've been working hard along with my command staff in terms of building those relationships back up. And we've made some progress. Are we where we want to be? Of course not. But we have to keep chipping at that to get it where we want to be. But things of this nature are certainly problematic for people in the neighborhood.
Let's talk about the more on the recruitment side of getting more African Americans. And I know we say minorities, but I'm gonna just be honest. We need more brothers and sisters. We need more of us on the police force. Just facts. I'm not no disrespect to the Hispanic community because they came out. They turned up on the last batch that went through. So I need brothers and sisters to join the force. What are some of the things that you've seen maybe in watching people that apply and come in that are holding them back? Because it's not that hard to become a Chicago police officer. It's not as hard as people think it is.
That's exactly
Especially for my ex-military guys
That's
and girls.
Exactly right. So listen, we've done a lot of things to help black people get on this job because it's a great job. Right now we have prep sessions for the exam and the power test, which is the physical exam part of it. And we also have credit repair workshops to help people repair their credit. Because listen, I tell you this, what we were seeing is that credit were knocking a lot of black people out and the physical exam was knocking them out. So now we're doing everything we can to help them, but you have to want to get it. So we're doing a lot of things to help black people come on this job because like I said before, the city is split up in a third in terms of demographics, and the police department should absolutely reflect the demographics of this city. But the cold fact is I cannot put black people out there if I don't have them. And that's why I implore people, take the exam, go through the process. The other thing about it,
put the chips and weed down.
Leon, I tell you, the other part is that for whatever reason, we find a lot of us that get knocked out on the drug test. So you got to put that stuff down if you want to become a Chicago police officer. And we need you. We really do. If we want to change things quicker, then we need people that understand different cultures to come on the police department.
Understand our people. Like I'll say it if you want to say it. We got to have more brothers and sisters that understand who they're policing. Because I'm going to be honest, I've gone to some neighborhoods and I see my white brethren, my Caucasian brothers and sisters get out the car and they already either A, super aggressive or scared. Because they don't know how to deal with JoJo and them. They don't mean no harm, but it's just a certain way you got to talk to them to get them to stop doing stuff.
And that's exactly why now we have, we take them to the new recruits to the DuSable Museum so they can understand the black experience in Chicago and how we got to where we are. But as a superintendent, as a black man, I just think it's important when we have new candidates come in, we have to put them in the neighborhoods before they get out on the street officially so they can kind of learn and not be so resistant towards it.
Mm-hmm. Take them to the taste on 63rd and Low.
I want to end on a high note, but I got to go back to the weekend violence. I saw your press conference on Monday, and I felt your emotion. And you said that the cops always, when things like this happen, we always give the blame to the CPD. And you said, what about the person that pulls the trigger?
That's right.
They always don't get it passed. People need to tell. But I think people in these communities, and I agree, we should go to the police and tell, but I think they're afraid because it's like, if I tell you who shot that person, how do I know that my child's not going to die now?
Now, Kendra, you hit a very valid point. So listen, I know that as a superintendent, we have to do a better job of repairing the relationship that we have in the black community. I know that, and I understand totally people's fear about, giving up information, because we have to ensure them that we can protect them and keep them safe as well as their family. So I understand those dynamics because, I'm from the neighborhood. I still have family in the neighborhood. So those things don't escape me. So at the end of the day, though, the police, of course, we have a role to play in violence reduction. The mayor and elected officials have a role to play, but at the same time, the community has a role to play, because the honest truth is, and this is the honest truth, the police department cannot do it alone. We need help, and the help that we need is from the people that witness these things. And in no way is it the neighborhood's fault that these guys are out here pulling the triggers. The fault of the trigger puller is the trigger puller himself. But the neighborhoods can help us bring these guys to justice so they won't continue to pull these triggers.
I feel like in a lot of ways, Superintendent Eddie Johnson's hanging out with us. In a lot of ways, policing itself is reactionary. And I feel like, there's so many symptoms, there's so many reasons why we go through what we go through in these particular neighborhoods. And, I know we all want everybody to put the guns down and we want the police to do their job, but I really want us to get to the point where, some of these policies have to change. Some of these people that are in power have to be out of power. We do need the resources in the community. People do have to have educations. People do have to feel like they're working towards something positive to not create these situations. And do you feel like there's a way that we can actually get to that point where we're building the community up so we're not having to police on the back end?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely believe we can get there. We just have to have the will as a city to do it. And you're absolutely right, Kyle. Economics, resources, housing, mental health treatment, better education, all of those things are important. If crime were just a symptom of one thing, we would have solved this a long time ago. But the fact of it is, it's a complex issue. And I'll tell you all this. I've been exempt staff. That means I've been a commander or above for the last 10 years. And I will tell you all this. When I was the commander of the 6th District, I worked a lot with some at-risk people that were in the life, doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And I tell you, over at St. Sabina, Father Flager and I worked hard together to get these guys, point them in a different direction. And I will tell you all this. There's nothing like seeing a guy that's been out there in the streets all his life. There's nothing like seeing him when he gets that first paycheck and he can go home and show it to his girl and his shorties.
And not look over his shoulder.
That's exactly right. There's nothing like that. So I know we can get there. We just have to have the will to do it as a city.
Well, I just want to say, we love you here on the show.
Yes.
We're always glad when you come in and talk to us. But, brother, I commend you because you got a job where you can't win. I every time I see him, I say, man, they're giving my man drama. He can't win, but I'm glad you still keep pushing.
And thank you for being willing to come up here and talk to us.
Absolutely.
Not a problem. I don't do this because it's easy. I do it because it's hard, and it needs to be done. And we'll get there together.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about you. Like, I feel your spirit, and genuinely, I feel like when you talk to me, even though I be mad, you help me understand, from a different point of view. Because I was cussing y'all out on Instagram this week.
G is a black woman with attitude.
No, but I'm just real passionate about my people, and I just feel like I say that I have a different life all because of my income, and that shouldn't be that way. Every part of Chicago should be safe. It shouldn't be because I have a dope job, I can live in a place I don't have to worry about at night. Inglewood should be safe. Just as safe as downtown is.
You're absolutely correct. And I think if we keep going in the direction we're going, we'll get there. Because remember, this stuff didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in 5 years or 10 years. This has been a problem for decades. And we just have to have the will, not just as a police department, but as a city to change those things. Because you're right. You should be able to walk down any street in this city and not feel like, you're a target.
Facts.
All right, well, thank you very much for hanging out with us today and talking a little bit.
I got to drop the salary part real quick because,
they giving large,
me, they're giving me okay,
72
now,
large.
Become a police officer because you start with $42K, but then you can end up with $72K in 18 months.
18 months.
I'll date
So
you
year and a half. Hey, listen, I just have one request before you leave, and it's nothing illegal. There are 4 officers that are good friends of mine on the CPD. I want you to give them the cleanup behind the horse detail for umbilical parade because they owe me money on bets. They've not paid up their bets, their drinking bets. So next parade you got where the horses is out, don't put the bags on the back. You make them walk behind with them brooms, and I'm going to give you their names.
Man, you cold.
All right, thank you very much, man. Superintendent Eddie Johnson hanging out with us today in Chicago. Let's take a quick break, baby. It's WGCI.